Yeah, I think we're open to having competition at the quarterback position and every other position on the roster. I think that we're never going to close the door on that.
You know, you mentioned the Raiders. I was told that the Raiders, they've got everything on the table, and they're going to watch how this thing shakes out, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, we have new reports about the Las Vegas Raiders possibly trading up in this draft, and news about CJ Stroud. Why is he falling? Why are all these negative stories coming out about the QB prospect? And how could the Raiders' friend in the media be helping them out yet again in doing their dirty work? We're going to break down everything happening. Make sure you click that subscribe button for more Raiders content. The betting odds have gone in favor of Will Levis being the second quarterback taken in the draft. We have also heard some stories about the fact that the Houston Texans are not interested in drafting a quarterback. The head coach DeMeco Ryans, who is the former defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers, seems like he's more inclined to find a defensive player, somebody like Will Anderson. And we have heard previously that the Raiders did want to trade up to the #1 overall pick from the Chicago Bears. And we've also heard chatter lately, and this is from Diana Rossini of ESPN, that the Raiders are keeping all options on the table, including trading up. And it could be possible that they trade up with the Arizona Cardinals for the #3 overall pick and select the second best quarterback in this draft.
You mentioned the Raiders. I was told that the Raiders, they've got everything on the table, and they're going to watch how this thing shakes out, right? So,
and perhaps the Raiders would know what the Texans want to do at quarterback if they're going to pass at QB at pick #2. Well, because they went to college with a guy at John Carroll University, that is general manager Nick Caserio, who did even play college football with GM Dave Ziegler and Raiders head coach Josh McDaniels. So they know this guy, and maybe they're getting a tip that he might pass on QB, and so it'll be worth it to trade with the Arizona Cardinals. And for the longest time, just a few weeks ago, we were all talking about how CJ Stroud might be the best quarterback in this draft class. And many people thought that Frank Reich, the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, would select CJ Stroud with that #1 overall pick. But maybe he's been destined to be a Raider this whole time. We remember him being asked about who he would like to throw to, and he did imply that he'd love to throw to Davante Adams. And Davante Adams even liked this video that was posted, CJ Stroud admiring the wide receiver. And now it seems like with all this news happening right now, and especially this latest news about CJ Stroud, it really seems like the Raiders could quite possibly land this guy as their next quarterback. General manager in his pre-draft press conference let it be known that he is open to having competition at the quarterback position for Jimmy Garoppolo. And now we've had some negative stories about CJ Stroud and stories about the fact that he could be falling in this draft. You have Brady Quinn mentioning that he ghosted the Manning Academy.
The Manning Passing Academy. I've been told that, he committed to it the night before, just kind of ghosted him, didn't show up. That's football royalty.
You also have the results of the S2 test that came out, the cognition test, and CJ Stroud performed the lowest out of all of the quarterbacks. Funny enough, Dave Ziegler responded to questions about the S2 test and whether or not he values them.
Yeah, in terms of the S2 cognition test, we're familiar with it. It's not something that we currently utilize here. We use a lot of different other available tools for us evaluating quarterbacks and other positions. I know some what it is and some of the value of it, but like I said, not something that we currently have in place here.
So it seems like for Ziegler, the S2 test does not seem to matter that much, and maybe he's going to take Stroud anyway. And the big kicker you have is Michael Lombardi, and we know Michael Lombardi. He is the freaking dad of the offensive coordinator of the Raiders, Mick Lombardi. He's his dad, and he goes out in the media quite often and defends Josh McDaniels. He is just the bodyguard of Josh McDaniels, fighting all the negative rumors. He blamed Derek Carr for the poor offense when Josh McDaniels ended up benching Derek Carr. And more famously with Darren Waller, Lombardi was the guy who claimed that Waller just dipped out without talking to anybody. And Waller later debunked these claims, saying that he communicated with Josh McDaniels. And it just seems like Lombardi, right whenever a player leaves the Raiders, he goes out and slams them and tries to defend the coaching staff, which makes perfect sense because his son works for the team, despite the fact that he's always telling us, oh, don't worry, the fact that my son works for the team has no impact on what I'm saying.
It's always the players are right, the coaches are wrong. And I'm not saying this because my son's the coach there.
And look, there's nothing wrong with having a biased perspective. We just know where he's coming from, and that's why we find it very interesting when he is out there talking trash about CJ Stroud, which is essentially what he's been doing.
CJ Stroud's an interesting guy. Not an easy guy to coach. coach. He's very not believing in what you're saying.
Saying that CJ Stroud is not coachable, he's hearing he's not coachable, he's hearing that he's difficult to work with, and saying that he ultimately thinks CJ Stroud will fall in the draft.
It's like he thinks he knows better.
He thinks he knows a little bit better.
Okay.
He's probably hard to kick to coach it.
And so maybe Lombardi is trying to help out his son in Josh McDaniels yet again. He helped him out against Derek Carr in the media, helped him out against Darren Waller in the media, and now he's turning to CJ Stroud to help him fall to at least pick number 3 so the Raiders could make that trade with the Arizona Cardinals. And look, if the Cardinals still elect to take a defensive player and maybe the Seahawks and the Lions do the same, the Raiders could still land CJ Stroud if all those teams cannot find a partner to trade up. But the most likely scenario that they nab CJ Stroud is if they will trade up. The question is, what will the compensation be? And just to be completely honest, the Raiders are not going to walk out of here only giving up a couple extra second-round picks to trade up to number 3 to get CJ Stroud. That's a freaking child's dream, and we got to grow up. To trade up with the Dolphins, the San Francisco 49ers had to give up at least 3 first-round picks to select Trey Lance. So in order to trade up with the Cardinals, the Raiders will have to give up their number 7 overall pick, their first-round pick next year in 2024, and probably something else, probably an extra second round, a third round, or maybe a player. That's going to be the minimum compensation if we're being real. And is that worth it for somebody like CJ Stroud? Are these concerns manufactured in the media to tank his value? Is that what's going on right now? And if the Raiders have already paid for Jimmy Garoppolo, should they just continue to roll with Jimmy Garoppolo? Is it sort of a waste of draft picks that you could be using in the future for your defense to go and select CJ Stroud when you got Jimmy G paid for this year and a little bit of next year, almost like $10 million next year that you'd lose if you moved on from him after one season? But with the reports from Diana Rossini, ESPN, it does seem like this is on the table for the Raiders and a possibility. Let me know in the comments below what you want the Raiders to do, and check out some of these other videos you may have missed on this channel. My name is WiFiWillie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.